My name is Kia Walton.
My name is Abram Jackson.
Julius Crow, Hampton.
My name is Erica Janice Duke.
So my name is Abdul Haq Khalifa.
I attended Mira Vista Elementary. We were the Bees. It was a really nice school in Richmond, California. It's not known for its schools. Very diverse, had a great education. Like looking back, I can see like, yeah, that was quality. I learned quite a bit. Then I went to Adams Middle School, which was not a super strong academic environment. And that was challenging for me. That's where I really began to encounter needing to defend my Blackness.
So the types of schools I attended as a student were initially public schools in LA, and then I switched to independent schools. And that was interesting because I think, my mom was a public school teacher, and then, in some ways I know people thought like, oh, she's abandoning public education by not keeping me at the school. But I know she was ultimately like really trying to look at my needs and what was best for me.
When I was in elementary school, I wanted to be a truck driver. So my parents are from LA. So we used to take, trips down there, it'd be nighttime and just seeing the trucks and the lights. And so that was my dream. My father was just a serious dude. So for me, I knew how to do wrong right. I'll say it that way. And so I kept my grades real solid to keep my parents off of what I was trying to, do. But I don't really remember my teachers. I remember a high school math teacher because his breath was just horrible. So it just made me like, if I ever teach, I'm gonna have some gum.
I did AmeriCorps at a school here in North Oakland. It's called St. Martin de Porres. It's no longer open. It was a private Catholic school, Title I, and they served primarily Black and Latino students. However, within the Black population, it was really unique because a lot of the immigrant students, their families were from Africa. And so it was diverse in the sense that you had African-American students and you had African students, you had Latino students, right? And I was serving in a kindergarten classroom. And the teacher, Miss Kimberly, who I keep up with till this day, she is not a Black woman, a white woman, but a great teacher. She sparked that curiosity in me to teach. Just seeing her and how she handled kids that look like me. She handled them with care. She even handled the families with care. She handled her passion teaching with care. And that really struck me. It's like, oh, I think I can do that.
My grandfather passed away, a year ago? And he was the last remaining relative in Arizona from Tucson. So there's no more roots in Tucson, even though the history there in terms of African Americans is quite interesting, and like how my family ended up there. So I like to claim that too. But yeah, I'm from California, from the Bay. I think the Bay has a particular culture that I'm proud of, that I embrace and celebrate.
I grew up in this system and I soaked it up. I got so good at this system that it became hard to think outside of it. I just got really good at doing this. But it was really like fertile ground for me to grow and develop. I also was leaning a lot into whiteness. They were just different worlds, different cultures. So even though there were Black students and brown students present in those spaces, it was just different. The difference was something I also avoided in high school, eventually tracking myself out in AP classes. And then the people I'm around are white and Asian primarily.
I think having had private education for the earlier years actually did me some good. And it's not to put down the public education system at all, but it's to name that you experience a different level of preparation or whatever. And that's entrenched in classism and racism and all that stuff. That's right. It's not the teachers at public schools. It's the fact that the system was set up that if you pay a little bit of money, you have a different quality of education. And that's unfortunate.
I went to a Christian school in Concord, California, which is the suburbs. And I was like one of the only blacks, but I didn't have any type of race consciousness or anything. However, there was an incident, maybe in 4th or 5th grade, it had something to do with race. And it was me and my friend who was also black. His parents ended up taking him out of the school behind that. And my parents, we never had a conversation about it. Because I remember my mom having a conversation with the principal, and it got ugly, you know, and I always remember that.
How I had been built at this point was just more comfortable, responsive, excited for spaces that checked a lot of boxes of white culture. Because I felt there was something wrong and unjust about it, I decided I was not actually exceptional just to equalize it. I had to, for myself, hold a mentality that I wasn't that great, I wasn't that exceptional, because if I am exceptional, the way it's framed is that means you're not. That means you're regular. And what it did for a long time was really contribute to squashing this feeling of my own excellence, because I felt so guilty that someone would see me and choose me and push me and give me access and give me the power to change and to live a life that we all should be allowed to, that someone would choose me over anybody else.
To the question of racism and how does it impact me, it exists, but that's not gonna be the reason that I am not successful. And I'm not a victim, because if so, I might as well just lay down now. Am I complicit? You know, do I open my mouth? Do I make moves? Because I don't think there's any neutral ground. There's no gray area. You're either with it or you're not. So yeah, it exists, but the failures that I have, I'm the source in some way.
Teaching was something that I was born into. I'm a 4th generation educator, believe it or not. And I found that out more recently. I didn't know that growing up, but once I found that out, I'm like, oh my goodness, like this is definitely part of my family history. It's in my blood.
I don't have the traditional sense of like what it means to be a teacher or going through a program to become a teacher. I feel as though everything was by so fast for me. I guess I decided for it to go by fast. I didn't take a break when I graduated from undergrad. I just continued going. When I think about it now, I don't know, I feel as though I've lived many little lives and I still have so many more to live in the world of education. Yes.
Now, what was missing, I feel like there wasn't a full attention to my humanity. That was really hard, like really, really hard. I feel like I didn't always, get exactly what I needed. I didn't, sorry, I'm just like going there. I didn't feel like I could be my true self. I didn't have that many people who look like me. That just made school hard. So that's part of me becoming a teacher is doing that healing work. I wanted to be the teacher I never had.
I've always had this tension of like, you know, being an African-American educator in a private school that usually mostly serves white students, especially in San Francisco. That's just the tension I hold. And I try to make up for it by teaching a particular content in ethnic studies. And also I work at San Francisco State teaching adjunct ethnic studies. And I feel like I've had a good experience of working across different contexts. I have not yet worked full-time at a public school as a high school teacher. That's like a goal of mine.
Sometimes I'm just very protective of my voice, of my stories. I'm not just about to, because this is a diverse conference or a PD to talk about diversity, doesn't mean I'm opening up my mouth to share my experience. My question is, do you really fully understand the experience? And they may be genuine. Don't get me wrong. They may be genuine. I'm not doubting that. But I get kind of like uptight about it too, like kind of upset, because it's just like, who's really listening? And then when we write up these stories or we get all these reports, do my students' parents get to read this? No. And so I share these type of things with my students. They will know that I did this interview. I will probably use it in one of my lessons, because I want them to be aware of what's happening. But outside of New Orleans, outside of Louisiana, to get them to think like, okay, if Miss Duke is doing this, look, I'm going to do this as well. And it could be in any different type of capacity,
There was a point, she was 13, 14 years old at the time. Yeah, my daughter. And we had an argument. And I was like, how do you want me to connect with you? And she was like, get a journal. I was like, okay, cool. And I wrote in that journal, and she never wrote me back. But I was thinking in my mind, she's a preteen, that's cool. When I die, maybe she'll reflect and it'll mean something to her. So last January, she died. And I never realized how important that journal would be to me. Because I thought it would be something that she would have. And I say that just to say, just in terms of mentorship, finding different ways to connect. And you never know what will grow. Because as a parent, I can't name anything else that's more precious than my children. So for me, the job is sacred. For me to be with your children 5 or 6 hours a day, what am I going to do with that? And what is going to be the impact?
But there's something in me that really likes the idea of just take over the space, take over your classroom space, be big and be funny and say things that your parents said, to just be bigger in spaces. That's what I want, particularly for my Black kids, to take up their space. And for me as a teacher, as someone who is unlearning white supremacy culture tenets, and as someone who's unlearning the nastiness of power dynamics and unlearning my stereotypes, unlearning my classism, all of that, how do I make space for you to just be?